The Miracle on Ice, The Miracle Mets, Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. None of these historical sporting events were even close to being as unlikely as the 2015-2016 English Premier League season. Being crowned the champion of the highest tier of soccer in England is hard enough, especially when you start the season as a 5,000 to 1 shot to win it all. This is what you don't know about Leicester City's Premier League championship season. Welcome to What You Don't Know About Sports, where we delve into the forgotten stories, teams, and athletes of sports history and question widely held takes on today's sports. I'm Blake, and this is Matt.
Howdy.
And this is Ross.
Hi.
You may know him from the Drinking Around Disney podcast, our dear friend and loved one. He has joined us today because...
Dear friend, anyway.
He has joined us today because today we're going to tell you about possibly the most unlikely sporting event in history. That is Leicester City's 2015-2016 Premier League title. I'm going to ask both of you, because I want to hear you both talk. What are your initial thoughts on this run by Leicester? Like, do y'all remember it happening real time, or is it mostly just we're looking back at it now?
Oh, I definitely remember it happening. I want to say this is probably like the second or third year when I had gotten back into soccer. And I really didn't know much about Leicester City at that point in time at all. I know that it had been a Premier League club for a little while. And then it just, to me, this was like somebody you had never heard of just showing up and just tearing up and winning it all. And I was like, where did these people come from? Who are these people? Then I just started learning about them as the season went on, and my team didn't perform as well as they did. Shout out West Ham United.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Why don't we?
His team never performs as well as that, so it works out.
I will say, I love my West Ham team because every season you don't know what's going to happen. Every season it's beginning of the season, you're like, oh my God, we're going to make Europe. And then in December, it's like, oh my God, we're going to get relegated again. So it's fun to be a West Ham fan, unlike you, a Tottenham fan over here, Bissett, where you're like, we're going to probably be in Europa League or in Champions League at the end of the year every season. I could be anywhere, and I like that.
Anywhere except the top four.
Yeah. So wait a second. As of today, we are top four.
The season ended today, which is always said by people who aren't confident in the season ending later. So
come on, COVID.
So yeah, I mean it's the same deal. It was probably actually the first season that I would have been interested in soccer, like outside of playing FIFA on the PlayStation or something like that. But the run got me interested in paying attention. And so the end of that year and then the start of the next season would have been the first one I really paid attention. But starting to figure out like how soccer in Europe works, the domestic leagues and the various cups and continental competitions, this got me interested in all of that. So I remember it happening. And like Ross, it's one of those situations where it's like, well, okay, but why is this a big deal? How is this a big deal? How does it fit in? But yeah, it's definitely a long shot. We've done some underdog stories here, and this one probably takes the cake for sure.
I would think so. I don't think many, if any, sporting events in history had champions. Had lower odds to win their championship,
and definitely not full season competitions. Maybe like tournaments, you get some underdog deals, but not a 10-month. You play everybody twice. Like it's a difficult thing. So yeah, gotta be tops.
Right, and that's part of the thing about this is, like you said, you don't just get hot, win 6 games, and you're the champion, like in a college basketball season or something. You have to be consistent for 9 or 10 months. Like, you have to win consistently, and that's what's making this so much of a story, is that like you just don't see that sort of thing because it takes so much consistency to do it. And we'll get into the details a little bit. We all know the bookmaking odds of the title run. As I said in the introduction, they were 5,000 to 1 at the beginning of the season. But did you know that according to bookmakers at the start of that season, there was a higher chance of Elvis Presley being alive than there was of Leicester winning the Premier League trophy that season?
It's because he still is alive.
Oh,
Yeah, everybody knows that's true. So
I mean, I'm pretty sure I got fries from him when I was in Nashville. He's a street vendor on the side.
I see. So the Miracle Mets of 1969 were only a 100 to 1 choice to win the World Series, apparently. That seems interesting to me.
less teams involved. Well, actually, not less teams involved in the Premier League. So yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
The Buster Douglas Mike Tyson fight that I mentioned in the intro as well. Buster Douglas came into that fight as a 42 to 1 underdog.
Definitely less teams involved.
No teams, just 2 people. Apparently, the odds of Simon Cowell becoming the next British Prime Minister in 2015 were 500 to 1.
Oh my God!
I can see that though. That would, I mean, because he's a celebrity.
He's
Big deal.
But he's like he still wasn't really known to be that nice.
Yeah.
So he had a 500 to 1 odds to be the leader of a country.
So no political commentary here, but it usually doesn't take a nice person to be in charge. So.
But I mean, if almost the entire country despises you,
Sure.
I don't think you're going to win. Your odds should be a little bit higher than that, at least.
That's funny.
We also mentioned the Miracle on Ice. Apparently, that was a 1,000 to 1 odd before that game. And again, to reiterate, that was just one game. Like anybody can get hot and win one game. Anybody. Leicester had to win for so long. That season is grueling because not only do you have the Premier League games that you're playing, if you're lucky enough to be Champions League, you're playing in an FA Cup, you're playing in whatever in between. That takes a toll. That you're not just playing 38 games. I don't know how many you would play, but you play way more than that if you're involved in any other tournament. And my favorite one, the odds of Christmas being the hottest day of the year, 5,000 to 1. So that is now the benchmark.
Well, one day Disney's going to make a movie about this, and it's going to be some dad riding away on his motorcycle, and he's going to be like, I'm going to return when it's 85 degrees on Christmas, and then it's going to be like Angels in the Outfield, like when the Angels win the pennant. It's the same deal, right?
It's like when pigs fly. It's like, I'll do that when pigs fly kind of thing. Well, in the summer of 2016, pigs grew some wings. Also, odds makers before the season had Claudio Ranieri, their coach of that season, as one of the favorites to be the first manager to lose his job. Now, we'll get into the details of his hiring and stuff like that and some of his background and some of his history, but while we're on the odds part, I figured that might be an interesting thing to mention here. So, because we have a guest, we do this most times anyways, but Ross likes trivia. So, what are we going to do? Trivia time.
Trivia.
For both of you, only 5 teams had won the Premier League title since its inception of 1992-93. The Premier League was established in that time. Who were the 5 teams to previously win before 2015-2016?
Easiest one, Manchester United.
Definitely them. Chelsea had won a title by that point. Is this ever or by the time Leicester won? So,
this is between the time that the Premier League was established in 92 or 93 and 2015-2016. So over 20-something years in between.
Okay.
All right. Chelsea is my answer.
Man U and Chelsea, right? Both of those are correct.
All right.
I'm going to stay in the same city. Manchester City.
That is also correct.
Oh, no. No, there are 2 more that I think, but I also think there's one that is like not a popular choice.
That is correct.
One of the two I'm thinking is not correct, and I don't know which one it is. So I'm going to go with the one that nobody knows, I think. Is there one that nobody would get? There's one that nobody would get, right?
There's one that's much lesser known than the other four. Yes.
All right, here I know that Norwich City has won a top flight title, but I don't know if it was during Premier League times.
Not on the list.
All right. We've lost, but that's okay.
Number 4 is Arsenal.
4 is Arsenal. Okay, Arsenal, and then Liverpool.
Liverpool did not win one from 93 to 2016. The 5th team, the Blackburn Rovers.
The Blackburn Rovers, yes. That's a trivia question, and it really was a trivia question because we did it. So,
yep.
I remember Arsenal because they had that invincible season where they never dropped a point.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, I couldn't remember because Liverpool just recently won and it was a big deal.
Yeah, that was like a I don't know how many year drought. It was decades, but yeah, they just recently broke that. But Alan Shearer was the leading scorer on that team, if you know that name.
Yeah. Okay.
So between the Premier League's inception and Leicester winning, in every instance, the title-winning team had finished no worse than 3rd the prior season.
Probably the best example of that is looking back towards Liverpool from last year, how they just dominated and ran away with the season. And then in the offseason, they really didn't sign anybody. They signed Diego Jota from Wolverhampton. And I think they made another small signing, but no big name signing. Now they're 20-some points off of where they were a season ago.
With no real change.
And it's that's ridiculous.
There was a big loss, though. Van Dijk went out early with an injury and hasn't played since. I think that's the reason. Yeah, they can't. They are still scoring. They just can't stop people from scoring, which is actually an interesting relation to this Leicester City team. But we will get to that as well. So, how did they get here? You mentioned, Ross, that you had never heard of Leicester City. Well, that's because let's see, 7 seasons prior to their Premier League winning season, they were playing in the 3rd tier of English soccer. 3rd tier. Now, to be fair, they had either been between the top flight and the 2nd level for their entire existence until 07-08. They were relegated to the 3rd tier. They spent 1 season there, and then they got promoted back to the 2nd tier.
And if you're not a soccer person, and you probably are familiar with the concept of promotion relegation, but just real quick, the European soccer leagues are not like a closed shop like American system. You don't have to pay money to be an expansion team to get in and go through that whole process. It's all a pyramid. If you have a good season, you win one league, you move up into another one. If you win that one, you move up into another one. And if you do poorly enough, you get sent down. And so that's what we're saying here is they got sent down or kept going between League One and League Two, depending on what the name was throughout their history. And then they fell to whatever the 3rd tier is at this point. So they had to be terrible to get to that point because that not only were they bad enough to get relegated from the Premier League, they then turned into bad enough to be relegated from that 2nd division as well.
No bueno. And I, for one, on record, am an advocate of this system in American sports in general, but especially American soccer. I think that would be an amazing thing.
Even better. Y'all ready for this? You've already heard me talk about this privately. College football needs this.
Relegation.
College football needs promotion relegation.
Well, this is another episode, Ross. We'll school you on that offline.
Oh, but yeah, okay. We need it in college football. It'd be fun. It'd be so much fun.
I need to hear more about
it. It's an interesting idea, but yeah, we'll have to discuss that later. So, one of the personnel in particular that I wanted to talk about because his rise to winning this championship was probably one of the most unlikely, and that's Jamie Vardy, their leading scorer for that championship season. 5 or 6 seasons prior to them winning the championship with Leicester, he was playing in English soccer's 7th division. 7th. We were just talking about the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. He was playing in the 7th. He was a part-time soccer player, and he was making medical splints as another job. He had 2 jobs because this is not legitimate professional soccer. But he was playing for a team called FC Halifax Town in the 7th division. Just 2 years later, he played in the 5th division for a team called Fleetwood Town. That one's more popular. You may have heard of them. And then he signed with Leicester in May of 2012. I believe they were either in the first or second tier of English soccer in 2012. But no matter what, you start in the 7th division and you come all the way up. That's pretty freaking impressive.
Is this a deal where he is just young and kind of inexperienced and is just down there? Because I know that's not even normally where you would play in that situation. Like, is this a dude off the street? How's he
not an academy guy?
Yeah, like how is he not somewhere getting paid to be lowly rated, I guess? Like that's crazy to me.
He was part of the Sheffield Wednesday Academy. So I don't think that's the same as Sheffield United. Don't quote me on that. Mm-hmm. But Sheffield Wednesday was his boyhood club. And at the age of 16, they released him. And then he began his senior career with the Stocksbridge Park Steels. That's the name of the team. That's who he started at. I don't even know. I don't know if that was even. I don't even know what tier that was in. But then his next move was to the Northern Premier League in the 7th division of English soccer.
Man, you got cut, dude. That's how you end up in the 7th division. Is you get cut from your
released at 16 years old.
God, okay.
Which is the go no go point. I mean, 16 or 17, you're either getting signed or it's time to get rid of you anyway because you're not a youth very much longer. That's tough. That's weird to me. I mean, that's like picking a dude up off that's Taylor Heineke taking an exam 1 week and then Washington football team calling him to come play quarterback the next week. Like that's at this point you're playing rec soccer if you're in the 7th division of England. At this point. Like that.
He had 2 jobs.
Yeah. But unlike Taylor Heineke, he's having a much longer career in the pros.
Your favorite team's quarterback is Ryan Tannehill. Calm down.
Just saying, he's been lights out since he's come there. So, like Patrick Mahomes has been better.
Anyway, also one more thing about Vardy is, of course, that during the championship run in 2015-2016, he broke the Premier League record for consecutive games with a goal scored. That record still stands. He scored in 11 straight games. And if I'm not mistaken, he could have continued that if he had not received 2 yellow cards in the game where he scored his 11th and was suspended. He was suspended for the first game and then he got an additional suspension. So I think he missed 2 consecutive games after this scoring streak, which I would hate to be that ref because you know how many death threats that ref probably got after doing that?
Oh, for sure. And I'm pretty sure he got that second yellow while it was a home game.
Oh no.
Because I want to say he got it for celebrating with the crowd and getting into the crowd and the ref just threw the card, if I'm remembering it right.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. Oh,
that's annoying.
You don't want to throw out the star at home.
No. That not a good move. I bet he probably did not work a Leicester City game until last season, just because of that. That rotation that they're on, they just left him off of the Leicester City roster for a while.
You are not going to Leicester. You are not reffing against them. You are far away. If the game is of impact to Leicester in the standings, you are not reffing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no,
that was bad. All right, so we all know how unlikely it was that Leicester win the Premier League title in 2015-2016 anyway. But just them escaping being relegated the season prior was something that just as unlikely, if not more unlikely. And it's something that people don't really talk about. And I want to talk about it. So, flashback. You ready for another trivia? I have a double trivia time.
Yes.
August 22nd, 1485. Do you know what happened on that date?
Was that when William Wallace was entering the Tower of London?
I have no idea, but that is not relevant to the story.
I just know he was on the 23rd of August. So
this factoid has to do with England. It has to do with Leicester City.
There was a birth There was a death and there was a marriage on August 22nd, 1485.
Probably.
Correct.
I nailed it.
One of those things is the answer to the trivia question.
I honestly don't know the significance of that date.
So, on that date, King Richard III was killed in the Battle of Bosworth Field.
Okay.
And that was the last significant battle of the War of the Roses.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Teach the history people something.
I am familiar. No, hold on. Wait. No. But yes, I am familiar with the War of the Roses and such. I was not familiar with the date.
That is the date, allegedly,
now I know.
that King Richard III was killed in battle. Now, after his death, his body was taken to Greyfriars Friary in Leicester, where it was buried. That church dissolved in the year 1538, and the building was demolished. In turn, his tomb was lost. So his body was essentially missing. No one knew where it was because there was no marker. The church wasn't there anymore. A search for his remains began in August 2012 by a project they titled Looking for Richard. Imagine that. On the first day of searching, they found remains in the site where this church used to be, that they believed to be his. They confirmed his identity by DNA analysis, and thus the University of Leicester said beyond a reasonable doubt that skeleton belonged to him.
Okay.
Now, his remains were re-entered or reburied at the Leicester Cathedral on March 26, 2015. March 26, 2015. That is towards the end of the season where they were almost relegated. You following?
Okay. So, the only thing that would make this story even slightly cooler is if the grounds that they were playing on is on the site of the old church, and this definitely was just a cursed situation. Got to put him back in a church, and everything's fine. But it feels like the story's headed that direction.
This is really interesting. So that was March 26th when his remains were re-entered at the Leicester Cathedral. Just 9 days later, with 9 games left in the 2014-2015 season, Leicester City sat in last place in the Premier League. Leicester City had spent 23 consecutive weeks in the relegation zone prior to their game on April 4th, where they beat West Ham United 2-1 with a game-winning goal by Andy King. They went on to win 6 of their 8 games to finish the season, where they finished 14th in the Premier League.
Hey, I get it. Andy King.
King Richard.
King Richard.
See what you did there.
Put Richard in. Yes. Okay. I got the pause, but I was trying not to make fun of West Ham.
Just my feelings got hurt when you were like, and they did it by wet. And I was like, son of a.
So Andy King. And then so they finished fourth. So they sat in 20th, and in 9 weeks they clawed back up to 14th. 14th is respectable. Yeah. Not good.
Yeah. They finished that season with 41 points. 40 is the general number that managers shoot for if you don't want to be relegated. 40 is generally safe from relegation, and they got 41, finished in 14th place. But imagine being in the relegation zone, being in the bottom 3 of the 20-team league for 23 straight weeks prior to winning this game against West Ham. 9 days after King Richard III remains were re-entered in the city of Leicester.
Right.
So some people think that this is like some weird thing, and it put Leicester on the map, and it inspired the fan base, and it inspired the players, and it inspired the city. So they move out. They pull out of the relegation zone, finish 14th, and then the off season comes.
That's not that's weird, but something happened, because if I'm doing my math right, if there was 9 games left, so the first 29 weeks of the season they had scored 23 points, and then the last 9 weeks they get 18. So something happened somewhere to make that change, because if you only got 23 points out of 29 games, you ain't going nowhere.
Nope. They were bound for the second division. They were bound for the second tier. And then this happened. And this is something that I had not heard of until I started researching this episode. But apparently this is like a legitimate thing in Leicester. Like this was a big happening. And of course their team was garbage before this. But the most interesting part is their roster. The roster wasn't much different. I think they had the same captain. They had the same. Jamie Vardy was there. Riyad Mahrez was there. Their defenseman, who was their captain, was already there. Kasper Schmeichel was still there, I think. So, like, the team was the same. They just went on this crazy run.
Superstitious stuff is definitely a part of sports, whether it is the GOAT deal in Chicago with the Cubs or selling Babe Ruth for blood money in Boston. There's always NC State stuff, allegedly, is a thing because Carter Finley Stadium and the PNC Arena sit on an Indian burial ground. So they should probably rectify that at some point. But yeah, definitely there are always these weird superstitious moments because when things happen outside of the realm of possibility, right? Teams in Chicago and Boston in baseball should not go near 100 years without winning a World Series. A team that has, again, won 23 points out of its first 29 games should not be staving off. I love that word in sports. Staving off relegation by any stretch of the imagination. So when things happen outside that realm of normal, we got to find a way to make it feel right. And this is the only way to explain it because it's not a roster change in that season. It's not anything else. It's just we figured out where King Richard was and we stuck him in the right place and now everything's fine.
So weird.
I wonder if they have like a term like we have like the curse of the Bambino or the curse of what was Chicago's the curse of the Black Cat or something like that.
It was the Billy Goats.
Billy Goats
curse.
Yeah. I wonder if like did they come up with like a term for this? And I've got like a note here somewhere that I think this season was their 100th and 11th year as a club. So they've been a professional soccer club for 111 years, and they now put him in a cathedral now in his proper resting place.
111 would be 111. That's 3. Yeah, I get that. Yep. Okay.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't put that.
We just confirmed the Illuminati.
I was just going that they had been a club for 111 years and never won a top league title, and they finally put the king in the right place.
Richard III.
That's it.
Just saying. That might have been it. So that's that in and of itself is a weird story that I had never heard, and it's not talked about over here anyway. Leicester might know all about it, and England and Europe might know all about it, but I had never heard that story. Fast forward to July 13th. This is when Claudio Ranieri arrives. This was apparently his 16th coaching job in soccer. Now, at this point, the man is like 65 years old or something like that. So he'd been coaching for like 35 years. This was his 16th job in soccer. And it was said before the season that his goal for the club was to reach 40 points, which is the general number for relegation safety. During this season, though, they reached that mark on January 2nd in their 20th match. So just barely over halfway through the season, they reached 40 points.
I mean, that's to set a goal for the end of your season, and then you'd be like, oh, we're game over halfway, and I've achieved my goal. I can just sit back and relax now. I've done exactly what I wanted to do.
I'll get there by New Year's. Watch this.
And this is not Ranieri's first like big coaching job, right? Doesn't he have other?
Oh yeah, no, he's coached. So he played in Italy from 1973 to 1986, and he was a defender. And so as soon as he finished his career playing for Plumero, he started coaching. So he's been coaching since '86. He's still currently coaching now. He's coached at Napoli, Atletico Madrid, Chelsea, Juventus, Roma a couple of times, and prior to coaching here, he coached the international team for Greece. And he kind of was brought into Greece, coached 4 games. I think he literally signed the day, and then the next day they had a game. And he was like, we're going to see what happens. for today. Got nothing.
Roll the ball out, guys. Let's go.
And he basically lost 4 straight games, and Greece fired him. But I mean, you sign a guy, and like I think they were doing like some sort of international friendly. They didn't give him enough time to implement anything in 4 games, and so yeah, he was fired, and that might go to why his odds to keeping his job weren't that high.
Yeah, it makes you look bad. And this may be the only time I say it this episode, but regarding the Greece situation, I just have to point out that soccer people are stupid because they do things like this. You hire a guy to coach your international. I mean, it happens. You hire a guy to coach the international team in the middle of a cycle. You fire somebody in the middle of a cycle, and then you're like, no, you didn't do good enough either. You're gone. It's like, well, I just met that guy. That guy just got here last week.
Yeah, his fourth game was against the Faroe Islands.
Okay, now if you lose a game against the Faroe Islands, you should probably get
that was the straw.
I'll take that back. I'll take that. I'll take the soccer people are stupid back. If you lose to the Faroe Islands,
no, you won't. No, you won't because you're right. But anyway,
yeah, I was like, just watch the U.S. national team play.
He might lose to the Faroe Islands here soon,
like now. So we're gonna talk briefly about Leicester's 2015-2016 season. Of course, we know they go on to win the thing. Spoiler alert. Through their first 9 games, they only had 1 loss. But that was because of the Liverpool argument we made earlier. They just scored more goals than everybody else. They've struggled defensively. So Ranieri came back to the team and promised the team that if they held their opponent scoreless, he would buy them all pizza. Guess what happened the next game? They shut out Crystal Palace, and they got pizza.
Nice.
Well, this theme continued throughout the season, and allegedly every time they shut an opponent out, he would take him to a pizza place and he would buy. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It's childish, but it works.
And so, about Ranieri, he's one of his nicknames is the Tinker Man. So he's constantly known for going in and making little changes to go for perfection. So this makes sense that he would start doing something like that for his team. I'll promise you with pizza if you hold them scoreless. And especially with him being from Italy, he's very proponent of defense. Mm-hmm. Italian coaches and Italian players are very heavily on defense. So yeah, it would make a lot of sense that he would want to try to make sure no goals, because if you allow nothing, then all you have to do is score 1.
That's it.
You can't lose. You can't lose if you don't let them score.
Exactly.
It's that easy.
We see this sometimes. I mean, usually in college sports, but Kevin Keats at NC State takes his kids to go get ice cream when they went on the road. That's a thing. So I mean, it happens. It happens. Professional athletes being tempted by pizza. But you got to build a team and a community however you have to. And if that works, that works. And it clearly works.
Food is the way to my heart. So, I mean, and I'm older now than most of the players on that team were. So if I can be bribed by food, they can definitely be bribed by food. But anyway, January 16th of 2016 is a significant date. This is just over halfway through the season. And they drew versus Aston Villa 1-1. They earned a point. They took first place in the league. Prior to this game, this was match week 22 against Aston Villa. And the prior 21 weeks prior, they spent 7 of those 21 match weeks in first place. After tying with Aston Villa here and making this 1 point, they moved into first, and they never gave it up. From January 16th until they won, they were in first place.
And this is not all that. This is another for the non-soccer people, that kind of back and forth early in the season, not uncommon, because you get, unlike in our sports where a win is a win and a loss is a loss and a tie is a tie. In soccer, you get 3 points in the standings for a win, 1 point for a draw. Draws are not uncommon at all.
Right.
So there's a lot of in early season, small sample size. There's a lot of shuffling. You don't all play the same number of games early in the season because things get moved around, and so that's not uncommon. It is dominant for that to end somewhere around match week 21, because we're talking about just past halfway. Somebody is staking a claim to first that is going to be held. So that is uncommon.
Earlier in the episode, also, we talked about how not only are you playing on Saturdays and Sundays in your Premier League matches, you're also playing midweek in some other types of tournaments or competitions. On January 20th, just 4 days after they drew with Aston Villa, they lost to Tottenham in the FA Cup midweek 2-0. That concluded their involvement in all competitions outside of the Premier League. So all of the domestic cups, they weren't in Champions League, obviously, because they were terrible the year before. And the FA Cup is England-wide. Everybody plays. So everybody gets a shot in that no matter how bad you were. And they were playing in that, and they went out like the third or fourth round or something like that. They lost to Tottenham here. And January 20th was their last non-Premier League game, which makes you very well rested to play your Premier League games because you're only playing on the weekends or on the off chance you're playing on like a Monday afternoon or something.
Particularly to have it being done in January because everybody in the Premier League plays a difficult December because that's when, again, this is in the weeds, but the Premier League has 2 more teams than most of the European soccer leagues do. I think Spain may have 20. I know Germany has like 18. So you have to play 4 more games in your season, and they put those games all around Christmas. You play like twice a week.
Oh yeah,
for a couple of weeks. Then in January, February, and March, that's when those Champions League teams are playing like twice a week every week. Leicester gets to sit back and not, basically. I mean, rarely do you play a midweek Premier League game in the second half of the year. This year you do because COVID sucks, but
yeah, so a Premier League team could potentially play in 4 competitions in one season. Obviously, the Premier League, you've got the FA Cup, which is the biggest domestic cup. Then you've got the League Cup, or what's now known as the Carabao Cup. And then they could play in either the Champions League or the Europa League, depending on how they finished the previous season. So, yeah, for having to now have one set of matches to focus on for the rest of the season, that's great because your guys play one day. You've got another 6 or 7 days to rest up, and whereas you're facing teams that are sitting there, they're playing you with half of their youngsters from the academy because they just played a game 2 days ago.
From that game on, January 20th, when they lost to Tottenham and could only focus on Premier League games, they ended the season with 11 wins, 4 draws, and only 1 loss. So in 16 games, in the last 16 games of their season, they only lost 1.
So that's 37 points out of 16 games. That's you're over 2 points per game in this point. This thing that's
ridiculous.
That's a big clip. That's a big clip.
Like that's what Manchester City's doing this year. That's what Liverpool did in their race with Manchester City actually a year or two ago at this point when they both finished in like high 80s, mid 90 point at the end of the season. They just couldn't lose. They just weren't losing. And then of course, to spare you all the minuscule details of stuff that happened in the middle, May 2nd was when Leicester actually won the league. They didn't win it on the field, though. They actually were able to clinch the championship because Chelsea and Tottenham drew 2-2, and that secured them enough points to where no one else could catch them by the end of the season on May 2nd. So they had 2 games in hand, and they could have not played those 2 and still won it because there was no way for anyone to catch up.
And so Leicester finishes the season with 81 total points. Second place is 10 points behind with 71 points, and third is 11 points behind at 70 points. So, and a win is 3 and a draw is 1 point. So, I mean, to finish 10 points over second place is 1, outstanding. 2, for it to be the first time you've ever won it is even better, just to show how dominant they really were.
A couple interesting notes. Leicester's squad only cost £72 million from one source that I found. Mm-hmm. They only spent £72 million that offseason. Man City, that same offseason, spent 7 times more than Leicester did. They spent £415 million to stack their roster for the same season that Leicester only spent £72 million. It goes back to what you were saying about about just you just buy players and you buy players and you buy talent and money wins championships kind of thing.
So here's another interesting tidbit. I know Ross has a lot of strategy over here. He's just dying to talk about. But Here's another thing, because a lot of things, and again, this is something we see in underdog stories. A lot of things have to break your way. So 81 points to win a season. If you actually look up like the top 20 point totals in the Premier League's history, that list ends at 20th with 86 points. So a relatively low threshold to winning the title, because other teams are beaten up. They get the right combination of, they played well, obviously.
Yeah.
And they won when they had to, but they also get a bunch of other teams kind of banging on each other and taking points from each other up and down the table. That makes it that situation too. It's just like they had to hit. They got and they were 5,000 to 1, so of course they got everything to go their way. But everything really did, between just everything.
Going back to about like spending what you're saying, Blake, about how much like Man City spent. So Ranieri, this was his first season at Leicester. So he comes in. They had just fired their manager, Nigel Pearson, that June. Ranieri makes one buy. Leicester had already brought in, I think, 3 other players. They brought in Shinzi Okazaki. They brought in Christian Fuchs and Robert Huth. Those are the only 3 players they had signed before Ranieri comes in. Ranieri comes in and signs a guy from France named N'Golo Kanté. He signed for like 5.6 million euros at that point in time, which translates, I think, to $7.7 million back then. That's the only sign he signs. The equipment manager says he sees this little like 19-year-old kid walk up to him, and the kid's asking him, he's like, I need to find a hotel to stay at. And the equipment manager's like, where's your parents? Because he's like a young kid. He's hanging like a training academy thing. And he comes to find out like a day or two later, he sees him in the food court. Oh no, this is Leicester's brand new signing that's coming in. Who's going to be in the starting 11, and goes on to have probably one of the best seasons a defensive midfielder has ever had in the Premier League.
He was like 25 or 26 at the time of this season. I think Conte was born in 89. So he was like 25, 26, 27. So he wasn't like a 19-year-old kid. He had played professionally elsewhere.
We'll talk tactics real quick. So Leicester lines up in what's called a 4-4-2, and for those people that play FIFA, if you're looking on the formation guide, it's the 4-4-2, which means there's a left back, 2 center backs, a right back, a left mid, a right mid, 2 center mids, and then 2 strikers up front. And basically, the way they play is their left and right back both push up the field and assist the team in attacking. The center backs basically just, all they do is they just stay back. They don't do anything. There's no like late scenario where they're like telling them to push up or anything like that.
They would be playing like a safety.
Yeah.
In football, they're hanging back.
Yeah. The whole reason that those 2 center backs are there, honestly, is they're not really that fast. They're just really tall, really strong, and they're good for heading. So if there's any time that there's like a play around the box, they're there to either knock in the goals, or if the opposing team is trying to like throw up a high cross, they're there in the aerial duel to knock it down and get it away, so that way they don't allow goals. Now, the outside left back and right backs, they've got good speed, but they're not like a Trent Alexander-Arnold where they're like these amazing passers that can loop it in from the sideline on a dime every single time. So they're just there to like kind of support. On the left side, you've got Mark Albrighton, who his job is basically just to stay wide. He's not really that fast, and he just like lobs crosses in the whole time. Whereas on the opposite side, you've got Riyad Mahrez, who actually like wins like best African player, and he player of the year award, I think, goes to him. And he's more of he like cuts inside, gets behind the defenders, and he dribbles a lot and sets up a lot of the goals. And he's one of the ones that like he sets up Vardy on a lot of his stuff. He finishes second in scoring, leads the team in assists. But probably what brings us to the middle is we've got N'Golo Kanté playing left defensive mid, and you've got Danny Drinkwater playing right center mid. And these guys play two completely different roles. Conte is more of the box-to-box defender, and he just drops back and he's there setting up, trying to stop the passes going in and breaking up and causing tackles. And I think he finishes the season with the most interceptions of any defensive player. Whereas Drinkwater is kind of like linking up play between everybody. So Conte gets the ball from the opposing team. He kicks it straight over to Drinkwater, and then Drinkwater looks to go outside with it or bomb something over the center for Vardy. And then so that takes us now to the two strikers. We've got Shinzi Okazaki, who plays more of like a false nine kind of. So he kind of drops back. He's not sitting there spreading the back. He's there to help Drinkwater link up play or back up Vardy on Vardy's runs or try to pull the defense to one side so Vardy can have his run. And then just Vardy is your just like speed guy. He's just there to find the angle, find the hole, and go for it and look for balls. And he finishes the season with like 24 goals and leads the league in scoring.
Vardy is clearly the top guy because the way that you just described it, if you imagine Okazaki is more of the connector between like a Drinkwater to a Vardy. So like Okazaki played a Robin type role to Vardy's Batman, if you will. And if you want to think about like a Riyad Mahrez is a left-footed right mid. So think of him kind of like a Lionel Messi, where you play on the right side, but he always wants to come in and shoot off of his left foot. That's the kind of player he is. But Conte he had to be the signing of the offseason for any Premier League team. He brought so much to that team. They wouldn't have won it without him.
Just from the way he's described the tactics there, Conte is a big deal because you have to have that position to make this system work, it seems, because you've got your two guys you're playing back. Mm-hmm. Conte's helping them, but he's also the first outlet. I mean, if you think about in other sports, if you think about like the Showtime Lakers, the guy that made the outlet pass is the most important part of that fast break because you've got to get it to the right guy, and then that guy's got to get it to the right guy. Mm-hmm. So Conte's the first link in that chain a lot of times. He's playing a defensive role, gets the ball, now he's Drinkwater, and Drinkwater's the one that's got to read and see the field and know 2 steps ahead where this is going to go if I'm going to Okazaki or Mahrez or whoever's on the left.
Albrighton.
Not important.
So that's like their offensive tactics. Now their defensive tactics are a little bit different. So one thing that Ranieri likes to have his teams do is he likes them to be very compact and control the center of the field because he believes that's where most of the play happens. If we can stop you from taking control of the center of the pitch, then that pushes you out wide, and then we can eliminate you and kind of snuff you out there. So what he has them do is when they're in defense, is the back line, which is all of their defensive players, and then the front line, which is their 2 strikers, are supposed to be no more than 25 yards away from each other. So that's very, very narrow, which can all open them to counterattacks. But you have Okazaki and Vardy, if they turn the ball over while trying to attack, their first job is to put pressure on them and force the defensive players to make a bad pass. And then as that ball moves up the field, if they don't turn it over, they're still putting pressure on them from behind. And then you've got Conte and Drinkwater pushing pressure on them. So you've got 4 guys putting pressure on the middle, and you've not even reached the back line yet. So that's where they get like a lot of their turnovers from. And then they can go right back again. Everybody's still compact. They can then go for those long passes and all that spreading.
That pressing attacking line is incredibly important for relieving your defense because they don't have the best defensive line. Like he had to bribe them with pizza to get them to stop them scoring goals. So their back line isn't great. It's not like a Virgil van Dijk situation. Like he wasn't there, I promise. You have to have that pressure by the attackers to relieve some of that because if those huge, big, strong guys are faced with over-the-top balls and they have to try and outrun Harry Kane or Sergio Aguero or whoever's striking against them on that week, you're not going to outrun those guys. And they know that. So they sat really deep. Vardy and Okazaki pressed the defense a lot to try and get turnovers and stuff. but you can't have one without the other.
This should be a reminder to all of us who are casual soccer or just not soccer fans, that there's a lot of strategy into this, just like every other sport. I think we're all guilty sometimes of watching it, and we're just like, oh, the guy shot a ball in a basket, and that's what he was supposed to do, or like they ran this running play, or they threw the ball to that guy, or in this case, they kicked the ball in the net. Hooray! But there's a lot of moving parts. Everybody is playing a specific role. They're doing a specific job on offense and defense, and they all know where it's supposed to be going. So it's just like every other sport, where when you start looking at, oh, this guy's playing this way, he's always looking for these three things. Like this is his decision tree, and this other team is completely different. That's where, regardless of what sport you're watching, it starts to get cool, because you're figuring out, all the inner workings. To me, the story just keeps coming back to, it took everything going right. Like, they had a manager that put these people in the best, like, he's the tinkerer, and so he figured out the best spot and the best way to use his players. It took not being in any other competitions and getting that benefit. And it took, just going back to what you said earlier, 7 times less. Their squad was 7 times less than the Man City squad that was the most expensive that year. And coming from other sports where that can happen, that soccer doesn't work that way. It is not baseball and basketball and football, where there are multiple ways to put together a championship caliber team. Spending all your money is one way, but picking well in the draft is another way. Soccer is not that. If you have a $400 million squad, you have a $400 million squad, and you don't expect to lose to anybody that's not on that level, because you have international talent, world-class talent at all 11 spots. So 7 times less than that winning the title is nothing short of a miracle.
You're not going to be pulling a Billy Bean out there and with your Oakland Athletics and getting into the playoffs every year with like dollars to donuts over there and like nothing.
There is no soccer money ball.
No, there is not. They're trying to, but it's just it's a game with just so much individual and team aspects on it that it's just hard to get to look at like a stat sheet and be like, I can put these 11 guys on the pitch and I can win X number of games guaranteed.
It is one of the last sports that is based on scouting and understanding how like your eyes, seeing what they can do and putting them in a position to do that, because you can't look at a stat sheet and get it right? I mean, if you use N'Golo Kante in a different way, his production is going to be different. So just looking at what he did, you got to look at why he was doing that. And so the money ball aspect of it, no matter how hard you try, is just currently not there, because there is so many other moving parts to it. You just can't. You're right. Yeah.
One more thing on Ranieri. He was actually fired. He was sacked in February 2017. Leicester was only 1 point above relegation, with only 13 games left in the following season when he was sacked. So if that puts any perspective into what happened like the 18 months prior to that, they were only 1 point above relegation again with 13 games left in the season, and they fired him the year after they won.
Yeah, so he finishes his career at Leicester City, managing 81 games in all. That's all competitions, 36 wins, 22 draws, 23 losses, with a goal differential of plus 14. So that means they've scored 14 more goals than they've allowed. So that's a winning percentage of 44.4%.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah, and so from almost relegated to sticking in the league to winning the league to almost being relegated again in less than 2 years. But again, that's a product of, they were immediately in the Champions League with the same kind of roster. They don't have the depth. They fall apart.
It's interesting because N'Golo Kante's gone, Mahrez is gone, but a lot of the players that were relevant to that team's success are not there anymore. Like the leading assist man and the second leading scorer left for Manchester City like the next season or the season after. N'Golo Kante went to Chelsea and he won a title like with Leicester in 15-16, and he basically won at least one title every year until now. Like he's done nothing but win since he got to Leicester, and then after he left. So yeah, he won that was part of it was 2018 World Cup. But so let me get this straight before we go. You're saying that everything had to go right, which means all the factors have relatively equal bearing on the fact that they won. Like everything was fairly equal, not like one outstanding thing didn't win it. Yeah. Everything had to go right.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect storm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a perfect storm. Well, I mean, definitely it's looking like they had to rebury King Richard III. That was an important step. But outside of that, it looks like everything just went perfectly for them to be in this position, and then they did the work to capitalize on it. So
everything being perfect is them losing out of the domestic cup game, so they have more time to focus.
Having the right squad, having the right manager for that squad that year, obviously not the next year, but that year, everything, just perfect storm.
So if I were to play the blame game, I would put about 10% on N'Golo Kante arriving. I would put about 10% on Ranieri's arrival. And then the King Richard thing is still blowing my mind, so that gets the rest. And that's where I'm ending it. King Richard getting re-entered in the city of Leicester, that's why they won. Their luck held on just long enough to win the title, and then apparently it went away. So whatever happened that offseason, was horrendous, but well, I think that's all the time we have today. So thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you, Ross, for hanging out with us. My man brought handwritten notes to the party, by the way. Just want y'all to know that at home. He brought a notebook with handwritten notes in it. There's something that I assume that there is something that you would like to shout out before we cut it off.
My podcast with a buddy of mine, Cody, who's been on your show before, and y'all have been on ours. It's Drinking Around Disney. We're on every podcast platform that's out there. We're also on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. So if you like Disney and if you like park drinks, because that's what we make. We make drinks from the park. Give us a listen and give us a like and a follow.
With that said, thank you for listening. As always, hit us up on social media. Tell us what you want to hear. Tell us your stories. Until next time, see you later.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of What You Don't Know About Sports. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please leave us a review, 5 stars only, and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen. If you have a great sports story, we want to hear about it. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at WYDKAS Podcast, and on our YouTube channel at What You Don't Know About Sports Podcast. All episodes are written, recorded, and edited by us. Stay tuned for the next episode. What do we call people from Leicester? Leicesterians?
Leicester Knights.
I don't know. See, I just don't know if that's a thing anywhere else. We're just weird like that. Besides, you mean like Londoners? That's a term.
Yeah.
I hope there's not something like bad.
Oh, yeah. No matter what it is, it's going to be offensive. So we should probably just move on.
So, in England, there's no telling, in translation, what it is.
Leicester. Nope, that's not how you say that word.
I don't think that's right either.
Lessities.
Yeah. Also, don't Google search this because you find some derogatory stuff.
Leicestrians, Leicestrians. Okay,
fascinating.
Enough of that. Yes, the people from Leicester probably knew what was going on, not us, though.